You know, we've talked for some time now about how that MAGA just says all the quiet parts out loud. And usually when someone like Trump says the quiet parts out loud, he's conveniently got a couple of black people positioned right behind him so that when he says it, he can then say, well, I'm not really a racist. There was two black people standing behind me when I said it. But in this next clip, we see the racism get delivered right to the person's face, and they sit there and take it. Folks, this is one of the most painful clips that I've ever seen, really, because Vivek Ramaswamy is talking with Coulter, and she just tells him straight to his face why she wouldn't vote for him. Take a look at this.
And that's why I brought on today somebody who I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country, of our conservative movement, and on this question of nationalism and national identity, somebody I've been fascinated by for a long time and have interacted with on social media, but for the first time we're having at least live form conversation in the offline sense of it. It's Ann Coulter. So Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I too am a fan of yours. So I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Notice how he laughed when she made the joke about black people. He thought that was funny, but then he just went silent when she said it to his face, and he just sat there and took it. Imagine just sitting there and letting someone say something like that to you and not call him bullshit. And do you want to know why he didn't call bullshit? Because he knows deep down that if he steps out of line with MAGA Republicans, he'll get tossed right under the bus. There was a time when they would say things with racial undertones and people would catch it, point it out, and then when we did, we would get accused of being woke and we would be accused of being extreme and, you know, all that shit. But she said it directly to his face, right out loud. She says it to him, and he sits there and eats it. And there's people who will watch that and go, well, I don't see nothing wrong with it. And that says everything we need to know about you. But instead of Vivek defending himself, instead, listen to this next clip where he is doubling down and talking about how that he finds it ironic that white people can't take pride in being white. This is a really weird clip, but check it out.
Now, I'm going to make 2 points here relating to ethnic pride and nationalism. Look, I think it's weird that every other ethnicity other than the white ethnicity can take pride in their ethnic heritage. But if white people or people of a WASP variety or whatever take just pride, not denigration of anybody else, but pride in their own ethnic heritage, sure, that's deemed racist. I think that's weird. But I think it's insufficient to just stop there. I think what we're actually missing is why doesn't everybody actually start taking pride in the American civic heritage, right? So this is the way I don't want to see us go. I think it's great. The reactionary point is to make an observation that's true. It's super bizarre and weird and hypocritical and illogical and inconsistent for every ethnicity except for one subset of ethnicities based on the shade of your tan, which if it's light, a shade of your tan, you can't actually take pride in your own ethnic heritage.
What really disturbs me the most about that type of rhetoric is that it plays right into the hands of the hate groups. They hear that, and that's a dog whistle to them. That is a signal to them that, hey, this guy's on our side. And they can take that and use that to validate themselves. It lends them credibility. And we should never give any credibility or validation to hatred. But that's what that type of rhetoric does. Now, I know they'll call me the racist for pointing that out. I can't count the times on a daily basis that someone says I'm a racist for pointing out racism. Or they'll say, well, you've got white guilt. It's not about having white guilt. I just know assholes when I see them. I know right from wrong. And I'm not afraid to confront the past, no matter how uncomfortable it may be to hear, and no matter how bad it may be to learn about. I would much rather learn it, confront it, and work on fixing the problem. And I feel like as a 44-year-old white dude, if I can sit here and say, hey, let's work together at fixing the problem, if I can say, hey, I'm listening to you, I feel like that's a step in the right direction instead of continuing to double down on that type of rhetoric and type of bullshit, to try to validate it, to try to give it some sort of credibility. MAGA is saying all of the quiet parts out loud now, and they're doing it right to people's faces. But they're also trying to whitewash history. They're also trying to say that black people benefited from slavery. They're trying to get it to where it's not taught in schools. They don't want our children learning about it. So you're going to have an entire generation grow up okay, everybody you've ever got into an argument with about the woke mob, that anytime you tried to point out racism just accused you of being woke, well, guess what? Those people are raising kids. They're raising kids who will never learn about racism. They'll never learn about bigotry and hatred, because every time it comes up, that someone will just say to them, oh, that's them woke liberals, don't listen to them. That's not real, that don't exist. And they will grow up in a world thinking that those things don't exist, and they will be completely ignorant on our history. So then when somebody like me stands up and talks about it, it's going to be completely out of left field to them, no pun intended, because they're never going to learn about it. I know that I'm hopeful that the younger generation is going to pull us out of this mess. I really am. But I also worry about the younger generation that's being raised up by these kind of people to believe that there was never such a thing as racism, there was never such a thing as slavery, to just completely erase it from our history and try to pretend like it didn't happen. So what's going to happen when they are confronted with racism? They're not going to understand it. And then we're right back to square one. I was naive, folks. I'll be honest with you. I was very naive. And if you'd have told me back in like the 90s, back when I was in high school, if you'd have said, hey, where will we be on racism in 2024? I'd say, oh man, well, that'll be in the dustbin of history. We will have moved past that. But no, I was dead wrong about that one, and I feel bad for being wrong about it. I feel bad for thinking that it would go away. But I realized real quick when Donald Trump came along and empowered all the assholery, I realized, hey, it's been sitting there under the surface, just bubbling for the longest time. And I really believe at the end of the day, I really believe that it was 8 years of Barack Obama and them having to be led by a black man that led to Donald Trump. I will always believe that. I will believe that they sat back during his administration and they were just bubbling. They were so angry that he was their leader. And then when Donald Trump started coming along and saying the quiet parts out loud, it just gave them the freedom to just burst loose with it. And now we're in this boat where we have this massive leak now, and we're trying to plug it, and we're trying to fix it. And then we got people on our own side going after, oh, that's the woke mob, they took it too far. No, you can never take it too far when you're shouting down racism. And I don't care how people interprets, if they want to sit and call me the racist for pointing out the racism, go for it. If you want to say that I've got white guilt, go right ahead for it. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for the past. I'm not going to sit here and act like that it didn't happen. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it doesn't exist. I realize it exists, and I realize there's work to be done, and that's why I'm trying to have the conversation about it. I've had people reach out to me and tell me that things I've said had a racial undertone. I've had people reach out to me and tell me certain songs I sang or certain songs I wrote had undertones that I didn't realize that I was even using. Did I scream and cry and kick and moan and try to pretend it didn't happen? No, I always thank the person for telling me, because I want to do better and I want to see us progress. And the only way we can do that is to confront our history and confront the past, no matter how painful it may be to somebody's ears. We can't allow them to keep watering everything down and pushing it under the rug, because then we're going to have a problem bigger than we ever had to start with.